Everyone and welcome. So it's going to be a really fun today. You can tell we've got a little bit of a technical difficulty with our timer at this point, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll figure that out at some point in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and just kind of start a little bit of the housekeeping with it. So welcome to another Stone Ridge Confab. I'll be your host today, Scott Frappier, and I will say I've got some special people that have joined me as well that are now on stream that you should be able to see. And we're going to be covering some really fun topics. So I guess with that really quickly here, Mr. Dustin, Mr. Ron, why don't you guys just do a quick introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here today, Scott. I'm Dustin Pagano. I'm our Vice President of our Finance and Supply Chain Management practice here at Stone Ridge. I've been here at Stone Ridge for 6 years, and I've been delivering in the Microsoft space for about 11. So excited to be here today and to talk through our proven process.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Dustin. Mr. Ron?
Yeah. Hey, Scott. Thanks again for inviting me. Yeah, my name is Ron Root. I've been with Stone Ridge Software now, actually, believe it or not, 10 years this month. I'm a senior enterprise sales executive. I focus primarily on the larger enterprise level accounts and been working in this space for 30 plus years. Actually, Scott and I go back probably 20 plus years now, collectively over the years working together. So happy to be here.
I really appreciate it, Ron. It's kind of fun. I was joking around with Ron and with Dustin, saying we've got around 60 years of experience right now on this stream. So it's always
right here,
right?
Half of it right here, yeah.
right there. It's all Ron. It's all Ron. He's the radio voice as well here. So yeah, it's just really cool to be able to go through this here today, because what we've been doing is we've been going through really the implementation process that we do at Stone Ridge, and I thought who better to talk to that than obviously you two, because obviously there's on the front end here, Ron, you've got a lot that you cover obviously in the sales process and a lot of experience around that, and then Dustin, bringing them all the way through really to supportability is what you focus on, and for my technical bed, you're only as old as you feel, Ron, just so you know. So, and then Carly says congrats on 10 years, Ron.
Yes.
right
Yeah.
So
Gone fast.
Right.
Fast.
Yeah, it's been a joy. So like maybe what we should do here is just kind of frame this a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll flip over to my screen to kind of start this, right? Because I think what we want to kind of convey as much as possible to people here today is that, there's many ways to implement software. And, being in the industry for 25 plus years, and Ron, you've got me, you've seen a lot of different methodologies that are out there, right? We've gone through, like Microsoft had SureStep, even at the prior organization, Ron, that we were at, we had this Symbiont implementation methodology, right? Like there's always a special sauce that a partner does, but we focus really on what we call the proven process. And maybe, Ron, maybe we can start there with just a high level introduction of the proven process, kind of from your perspective of what it is. And what I'll do is I'll kind of pop up maybe the proven process slide that we can talk to with it then.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is, anytime we enter into a project, I think it's really critical to have a plan and to approach this in a kind of linear way that allows us to make sure that we're addressing those key points. But it always starts with that alignment phase, and that phase is really about learning more about the client themselves, about us, about you, and what are going to be some of the things that are going to be important to you. What is going to be, what do you define as kind of your success criteria? What are those expectations that you have? What are some of the challenges that you're facing today, those pain points? And all of that leads us into ultimately being able to sit down, align with them on what those expectations are, really understanding what those needs might be so that we can tailor a demonstration via that discovery and really help to kind of better determine who are the key people that we need to bring in to the system then beyond that demonstration. Because once we've started that, gone through that phase, we've established essentially some expectations around what the project scope might be, just again, kind of that back of the napkin number of what we think that might be. That allows us to really start aligning and making sure that the client understands from a budget standpoint what this might look like as well, so that we're not going to waste a lot of time with them going through a lot of different things if they just don't really have the appetite for it or weren't expecting. So just making sure that we've gone through those steps. And then that moves us over into that define phase. And that's really more the critical one, in my opinion. And I think one of the most important stages of this process is that define phase, because it's not really just about bringing on the team and making sure, but it's making sure we've got the right resources. And we do that by putting together what we call a roadmap. And that, I'll let Dustin talk about that a little bit more in just a minute, but that's one of the, in my opinion, one of the more kind of critical requirements and steps that needs to be really take place to ensure that projects meet those timelines, meet those budgetary expectations as well, and just make sure that we're in every step that the client it fully appreciates and understands exactly what their roles and responsibilities will be. And then we take that further through the create phase. Again, we'll go through this in a little more detail, but it's really getting through and analyzing that deeper level once we've really secured the deal. And when I mean really secured, we do the roadmap as the first phase. Then based on that, we'll put together some numbers that and set those expectations of what we think this project is going to take, and what you should be prepared for. Then we dig deeper in once we've really secured the full project and taking a look at, going further beyond that, really sitting down and doing those joint process design sessions, going through the deployment, and then ultimately empowering. So it's all, like I said, a very linear process that we follow that I think is really critical to ensure that the client is getting what they need, and we're doing it within what their expectations are from a budget standpoint and a timeline standpoint.
Yeah, and this brings up, like, I love that overview, right? Because like you said, like back in the days, what we would do is we would do like a 3-phase approach, right? Analyze, configure, and deploy, right? Like just a high level of what most implementation methodologies are. But here we've got multiple. We've got 5 separate phases that we really focus on with it, and I love that because it really it makes the components more manageable and understandable on where you are as you go through that process. And I guess, kind of Dustin, to that point, like I know Ron had mentioned that it's very linear. Well, it is linear because implementing software, like it can't just be full agile, right? Like we've got right. Agile methodology. Maybe you can make a comment about that, because I think that's one of the things that's beautiful about this process is that it's actually a combination, right? A bit of both waterfall type approaches for an implementation, but also using agile, for example, with JPods and things of that nature. Like what can you say about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in these earlier stages, you're right. It's a blend of both. I mean, I think when you look at the align and define stage, there's a certain element of, we've got to gather enough requirements. We have to have a detailed enough plan to really kind of set the stage for some of those later stages. But then you get into things like our joint process designs, where we do take more of an iterative approach, right? So we try to gather those requirements, configure a system, bring in the data, demonstrate the capability, and really assess, that the requirements, and do we have a fit or a gap with what we're hearing. So it's a blend in the sense of, we do these joint process designs and they're events, right? Like we're setting them up, we're walking through them with you, we're really building the solution together. But there's also elements of it that feel much more agile, like when we get into the testing phase, or we talk about inserting new code, where we are running things more in a sprint type cadence. It's clear, who owns what, and we're delivering kind of in that 2 to 3 week cycle to help support the overall solution. So it really takes kind of the core principles, I think, of your traditional waterfall and agile, and blends it together, and ultimately what becomes our proven process.
Yeah, and I guess, Ron, what I'm kind of curious off of is that at the very beginning of this stage, like if we can give advice to people that have not gone through an enterprise selection process, like what should they be thinking about? Because like I'll plant a couple seeds and maybe set up some softballs here. One would be like RFIs, like selection consultants being involved. Like where have you seen most of the success, Ron, with your tenure that has made it then so that when you go into and engage a business partner like us for a business system, that partner's set up to give you the right information so that because expectation has been something I've always seen that can cause a really big issue later on if you don't have that information and the right expectations up front. So where would you say your experience is around that as well, Ron?
Well, it's interesting. It really depends, on the client and the complexity of their business. For those companies, that have fairly complex business processes, I think it's valuable to have a consultant. It's valuable to lean on a consultant in those cases and to provide that that feedback that they can put together kind of an organized flow of what all the business processes are, what are the key processes. The thing that I think people have to understand, and I would always want to set the expectation, is that doesn't necessarily eliminate the need for us to do what we call a roadmap. The RFIs or the RFPs that we see from the consultants, and we get some really good ones, and some of them are very exhaustive.
And some really bad ones, right?
Yeah.
Like let's be honest here, right?
1,000 questions we've had. So they can really cover a lot, but it's really just kind of core functionality, and it's really the roadmap allows us to get in and dig deeper into what those process requirements are. And some of those process requirements that people have in place are really more because that's what they've been limited to for the last 10 or 15 years. So they're not able to really see and envision some of the possibilities of the things that you're going to see in a more state-of-the-art type of software solution like a Dynamics 365 might provide. So it's really important for that to again, set those proper expectations with them that, this can be a fairly exhaustive process, but the more time we put into it collectively, when I say we, that's working in that kind of that joint vision between us and the client. The more time we put into that, the better the outcome that we're going to have, because everybody really understands what their roles are, and exactly what to expect. And that allows us to stay on budget, allows us to stay on time. It's not that there aren't cases where that happens. We do uncover things that will require changes, but those are things to be expected. But I think it really mitigates those risks of things just kind of going off the rails.
Yeah.
Another thing I would throw in there, and I think this can get defined depending on your situation through a third-party selection consultant or not. But usually there's events that lead to, hey, we're going to D365, right? It could be things like we're on an AS400 and we can't support it anymore, or Great Plains is at end of life, whatever the case may be, whatever system it is. I think the roadmap is a key process, as we've mentioned at a high level. But I think having an understanding of why are we doing this and what are we hoping to achieve by it? I think one of the pitfalls I see at this stage is it's just poorly defined. It's just, I need my new ERP because the other one's not supported, right? And we can help get more specific. I think that happens in the roadmap in terms of, how does this business application in the Microsoft stack help meet your needs of where you want to go? But I think some definition around why are we doing this as a business? What are we hoping to achieve? And not only being able to have that, but starting to lay some of those seeds within your business with your end users to really grasp and understand, like, this is why we're doing it. It just lays that foundation for the people side associated with the deployments.
Yeah, I love that feedback. Hey, one thing I'm really curious off of. So, when we go through these opportunities, I always joke around. You can only have two of the scope, budget, and timeline, right? That you kind of look at with this as well. The reason I want to kind of broach that is because there's really like two different implementation type concepts that you can kind of lead with as a business system partner. You can either do it where we're going through, for example, this roadmap to align these processes to the system. And quite candidly, I think people think that's more like custom implementation, but experience that we have actually is quite the opposite, because in order to think about it like this, like if you've never driven a car before, which a lot of people have, right? But if you haven't, it's very foreign to know how a steering wheel works or how to use a blinker or anything else like that. And I get it. Like there's a lot of people that are coming from older systems, but Ron, to your point, like if it's a new modern system, the way we tackle things in modern systems, the technology sets that we use, the capabilities that we use are substantially different. So there's other partners, though, that come out there and say, hey, I know exactly how we're going to implement for you. You're going to exactly have this for your AP process. I guess, what's your experience with that? Is it a blend? Is it more often than not that, you're going to have some conversation with it? And is that why the roadmap is there to really buffer that to make sure that you're set up for success?
Absolutely. I think in most cases where you've got people coming in and saying, we know exactly what you need to do, or here's what we're going to do more specifically. Those are software products that are a little more static in nature. The more modern day software solutions, they're allowed to be configured in a variety of different ways. And that really impacts, how the software behaves for them and the things that they're going to need to do. So that's why it's really important for us to sit down, listen to the client. And that's the other part, is making sure that, getting that user adoption, we've got to listen to what the client's asking for and getting those answers, and then being able to provide and demonstrate exactly how we can do that with the software. And we do that conceptually when we do these joint process design sessions, but it's a critical piece, and having that. Short of doing that, you're going to end up, there's a lot of things. The only other way you could really do this, in my opinion, and not have to do necessarily a full roadmap, is where maybe somebody comes in and they've got a very specific software product that's designed just for that industry, just for that specific process. Again, it's going to be a fairly static software product then, and so they can say, this is the way it works, and here's how you're going to need to use it. That's the challenge I think people have then, because now all of a sudden people are being told, here's the product we're going to use, this is how it works. Sometimes that's a kind of a bitter pill to swallow. If I can come in and provide them with a solution that says, here's how you'd like to do it, here's how we can make this work, and to support those processes, you're going to get a lot more buy-in and a lot more user adoption. And I think, to me, that's the most critical component. Most failed software deployments or challenged software deployments are really due to user adoption. And I think that's really important.
I love that feedback. So we've got a good question that came into the chat here. I hope I don't butcher your name, Sharir Ahmed. Why deviate from Microsoft's established success by design framework when a proven process is already in place? And maybe I can kind of tee that up to even start, because I think it's a really valid point. Like, so you get engaged with a partner. We start talking about our implementation methodology or our process to implement, right? And Microsoft has had different types of implementation methodologies that they have also provided for partners, right? And more specifically around that, we've had, for example, there's been Rapid Start as a concept that's existed in the SMB space for it. And really, like when we start looking at, for example, the success by design, that's really something that came from obviously the fast track team, right, at Microsoft to help with that. I guess maybe what I can do is just start the conversation, and Dustin, I'd be kind of curious on your perspective as well. The concept around success by design wasn't to replace a partner methodology. It was there to really augment it, meaning these partners, like when we look at what Microsoft does for an implementation versus, for example, what Stoneridge would do. Microsoft, obviously, their design methodology, it may not be specific to industry as a perfect example. It may actually have, for example, only Dynamics 365 focus, because remember, success by design is just a D365 project type concept that's there as well. Whereas, like, for example, at Stoneridge, we're doing M365 with D365 with Copilot enablement now as a part of it. So I think the big thing here is that in my mind, the success by design doesn't really, replace a partner methodology or an agile or waterfall implementation methodology that you would do. It really sits along with it, and it's aligned in thinking around like the tech constraints, the product patterns that are there. Because it's so tightly bound to the Dynamics product. Whereas, for example, in our process, we're also thinking of like change management a little bit deeper, right? Maybe Dustin, you can go on that and just say, like, where is it, this it's almost like it kind of is used when we go through, like, for some of our engagement with the fast track team. We'll obviously align our processes to that, but the point I'm trying to get across is that there's just so much more, I think, that a partner methodology encapsulates as well as you go through that process, like change management.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they definitely complement each other, but I think when you start thinking about the proven process, it does incorporate some of those things. That the emphasis on organizational change management in viewing these deployments as something, broader than an ERP system implementation. It's really business transformation, right? We're touching each and every one of your individuals within your organization in some way, shape, or form. So I think being able to take the methodology and kind of put on that people lens and how ready is an organization to adopt this change? How big of a change is coming, and how do we help an organization navigate through that? I think that's some of the flavor as we've built out this proven process, and we've seen, what works or what doesn't work, has really helped us harden our proven process and also be a good strategic partner and not just a software implementer. I do think the industry piece is a place of that too. I mean, there's industries where we spend a lot of our time and energy, like agriculture, construction, manufacturing. I think our ability to take our understanding of those industries and be a little bit more prescriptive, like this is what we see in the industry, and applying that over the methodology to help that client be successful, I think just amplifies it even further and makes it kind of Stoneridge specific and proven process. So those are ways where I would say that I do think they complement each other, but it doesn't pull away from, each partner I think needs a certain methodology, and ours and proven process seems to be one that's very successful.
Yeah, and just to kind of go double down on that, like there's a lot. I'm really happy somebody asked the question, because even in the Success by Design, when they initially released it, there were only 4 phases. I think it was like initiate, implement, prepare, and operate. And now, for example, there's 5, and it's strategize, initiate, implement, prepare, and operate. So the strategize is kind of like our analyze. So we kind of match that in tone, because as we get engaged on these corporate and enterprise-based customers, we obviously need to make sure that if we're involving the fast track team, that we're then going through that. And to your point, like, why would we not want to just use Microsoft's? Well, we've got our own special sauce that we add inside of our processes that make it faster, that make it better, that make it easier for our team to use. But solution blueprints, right, Dustin? That's a part of it. Like these are a lot of the same concepts that are there, right? Yeah. So let's keep going here. Keep those questions coming. I really do appreciate it, team, on the line here. And I've got some feedback. I've looked at how 2 other partners approach things. It's great to see some insight into your methodology as well. It's always good to see what others are doing in our industry industry. You nailed it, right? Like our methodology is designed to scale either to a full custom type implementation for high complexity or be very specific towards our industries that we tackle, which I think is a beautiful thing to have a methodology. And here's the other cool thing about it: cross product, CE, BC, right? That's a real big focus of ours to make it so that we can pattern off of it. But I guess let's get back to ours. Like, so we go through all this work, and Ron, I'm going to set you up for the softball first here. Why the heck did we introduce roadmaps? Like, what's the point of a roadmap? Like, wouldn't we just want to sell software and be like, here's a $10 million, I'm just teasing, by the way, everyone on chat here, but $10 million implementation that you guys want to tackle? Like, let's go for it. Why is it that we have to have this roadmap step?
I personally believe that the reason for the roadmap, it used to be we would just do some simple discovery and then we'd go in and start to deploy the software. That was on some of the smaller systems. But again, as people's and businesses, processes evolve, I think it became more important. These roadmaps aren't just tools that help our client to be successful. It allows us to be successful with our client. Okay. It's really critical because I look at this as that joint vision. It's that collaborative opportunity for us to really make sure that the product is going to fit their process requirements and address everything from, change management to, the deployment to support, and just setting and aligning those expectations. The roadmap's also critical because we're working typically with the business process owners and occasionally with the subject matter experts as well, but we're really looking for those individuals that can make those decisions as we go through these processes. Not only are they sharing us what those process requirements are, but they can make a call on whether or not that process can change and how it might need to change or how they want to envision it differently. So helping them to be able to sell that then or convince their team this is really a better play, a way for us to approach this process now, and here's what we're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the more critical pieces of it.
Yeah, I love that. And Dustin, I'm going to let you retort to here in a second, but yeah. I think another big thing that I just want to add to it is the fact that, and maybe this is just the elephant in the room, right? Because business systems are hard to implement. They're the central nervous system of your company. And I think like the word that you've used in the past, Ron, has been cavalier. It feels a little cavalier to walk into a business and state exactly without having any background, even having industry experience, right? Because I will tell you, like, there's something in chat that says, John had said that there's, for example, every customer is slightly different. And there is definitely some truth to that, even industry specific as an example. But the cavalier statement comes from, how on earth can I be exact with a budget when I don't know your business to the level that we really need to get to? And I think that roadmap, maybe, Dustin, am I right? Does that help us start bridging that where we can be directional for an estimate at the beginning? Because obviously we're talking about dollars at some point here. The roadmap helps then align that. So how does that work, I guess, maybe to frame that?
It's very targeted and precise in regards to trying to uncover those things, right? Like if I think back to 5 to 10 years ago, right, it was, here's a list of requirements, and at that point we were kind of beholden on how detailed did you get? Did you really think about the future? Did you take into account more modern technology, that sort of thing? So it was kind of like, here's a list of requirements, go put them into your calculator, maybe do some light discovery. And then it almost got into a bid factory, right, against other software platforms or against other Microsoft competitors. And that's not who we want to be at Stone Ridge. We don't want to be just a software implementer for our clients. We genuinely want to be a strategic business partner. And that's really, I think, where the roadmap came from. Is it because we're dealing with enterprise clients, right? And this slide does a great job of teeing up like which clients do we think would be good for roadmaps. But when you look at these enterprise and corporate clients, your businesses are complex. There's maybe multiple lines of business. Maybe you grow through acquisition. Maybe you're integrating into larger third parties like payroll or point of sale system or whatever it may be. And there's a desire to leverage modern tools to drive efficiency within your business, like Copilot, right? So, I mean, when you start to factor all that in and that business complexity, this roadmap really allows our delivery team to work side by side with your business team to really start to define, and as the name suggests, build a plan or a roadmap to get to where you want to get utilizing the business application suite within Microsoft. So because of the experience we have, I mean, we almost lean with these roadmaps, almost every single, I don't want to say everyone ever, but almost every project that we do, we start with this roadmap because it becomes our North Star. It becomes, this is what we defined, this is the plan, this is what we want to work towards. And I think that creates clarity and alignment as we get into our projects and kind of allows us to pick our heads up a little bit and see that North Star, because you get into these 6-month, year-long, 2 years, sometimes longer engagements, and you're in the weeds of just deploying software. There's a reason that we're doing it, and this helps us establish that North Star. So there's some things that it does, there's some things that it doesn't, is kind of highlighted here in the slide. You know, at that roadmap level, we want to be clear. So not only are we taking your business vision and goals, we're bringing our expertise of the technology as well as our industry. And granted, I think the point's valid. Every business is different. So I don't think it's this is what it has to be, but we can help form that. And we try to create, how do we measurably ensure that we've achieved our objectives? How do you measure that? You know, we want to look at as-is processes, of course. We want to be clear on what are the pain points today and what are you hoping to achieve out of the solution. And then we're starting to strategize, right? Like, we're looking at what could be done within an ERP, or what's a good use case for a Power App, or that should be in Power BI versus, you know, an out-of-the-box SSRS, more static report. So all of that starts to get formulated. What does that architecture look like? What do we recommend in scope? I was going to make this point earlier. I think part of the methodology here is, let's get a win on the board. Right. Let's build some momentum. So when we think about the first phase that we deploy post this roadmap, let's try to bring in some of the factors of, you know, what are you trying to achieve, but what could the organization really absorb, and how do we get a system stood up that starts producing value and return on investment sooner? Let's try to get away from yeah, we're going to start this project and we'll be live in 3.5 years, and we're going to have, you know, organizational fatigue. So part of this helps us structure, you know, how do you structure that in a methodical way based off of your requirements? And then, of course, it's really important. Ron touched on it. We want to be really clear on what's in scope. We want to be really clear on what the effort is, right? And we deal with a lot of customers, in particular in the corporate and enterprise space, that they are in some ways self-sufficient, or have a desire to get there, or they'll make that investment, right? So our ability to partner together there, train people with our clients to really get to that self-sufficiency, but what's expected of both sides, and then of course what's the cost of that effort. So, you know, it's definitely not like, we're not going to gather every requirement ever. You know, we're not doing deep dive joint process designs into processes. We're not building modifications at this stage, but I think if we can focus on those things, we really have developed that North Star, and we're that strategic partner. And then there's key deliverables that come with that. So our solution blueprint is foundational to how we work. I mean, it's really the core main deliverable that comes out of the roadmap. And what is a solution blueprint? It's really a tool that we've built that's been heavily influenced by Microsoft and how they structure their process hierarchy. So it starts with that, but then it also gets into, at a very detailed level, tying the requirements that we gather out of a roadmap to it, the fit gap analysis, where we look at an independent software vendor add-on versus when we integrate, et cetera. And it really becomes the blueprint, as it says, for the deployment. Now, at the end of the roadmap, I don't want to kid you, it's not perfect, right? It's still kind of a small period of time, but our hope in being that strategic partner is it lives on with you through the project and gets refined. And then, as Ron talked about on our first phase, when we get to our last stage in our proven process in power, we want to build off of it, right? Like, we've put that initial investment on, and we now have your solution blueprint. You're now live on phase one. How do we continue to maximize the investment? So,
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was going to say that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
I was just going to say one other thing I want to add to that. When you think about a project like this, anytime somebody is going to be tasked with trying to find a new software solution like this, their name immediately becomes attached to this project. Okay. What this does, this roadmap, is it really allows us, after we've done this due diligence, which I think is really critical, it provides that peace of mind that we're coming in, we understand exactly what this is going to look like. We can set those expectations. It allows us to lead that team, to lead those departments, and understanding, what it is to them, what is their definition of success in each one of those departments, because they can be very different from, the definition of success for one company, might be, one thing, but then under each department, they all might have different points as to what makes them successful, how this is going to work for them. And again, I think understanding that and providing that peace of mind so that people go into this with eyes wide open, really understanding what those roles are is just critical. And I think it's one of the most important steps in a deployment process.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Dustin, I'm just kind of moving on. I popped the slides for everyone so that you can pause it if you want to in the video, as Carly mentioned as well in chat here, that we'll have this available for you to look at. What I'd recommend, obviously, is that, we'd love to talk more with you on this, obviously, in more detail. So just know that we're trying to give you as much information, 60 years of information, basically, in an hour here. So we're going to pop through this just really quickly. But I guess, one of the things to note here is that the roadmap is really about that ounce of prevention, right? Making sure that up front that we have the alignment of not just the selection committee, so to speak, but also of the leaders that are really going to be moving this forward, right? Because I know for a fact this happens, and I've actually witnessed it, where leaders make the decision, but it doesn't bubble down to everyone else. And I will say, can it work? Yeah, it can. We know this. Life is gray, right? But what is the highest percentage of win that we have seen when we get the entire team on board? And I don't mean it doesn't have to be the individual tactical end user that's doing it, but it has to be at a level where the organization, kind of like you had mentioned, from that fatigue that's going to be there. Remember, we recognize as part of this, part of the roadmap as well, is that you've got to continue to do your business and make money as you're going through and implementing the most complex piece of software that your company probably will ever implement. It's rare to hear of other companies that are software development companies that also then have other products that they use in conjunction with that. So I guess I think right here, Dustin, right to those points, is that this is a couple weeks of time that you typically want to take up front, and this is after you've had a selection firm in there that's helped you map out all those processes, build all those questions. This is where finally you map your business processes to the software to a degree at a high level, so that we directionally know where to go, and so that we can then confirm, hey, what you said in your RFI or RFP, you forgot these 10 different processes that take this amount of time to implement. The roadmap helps us catch those too from a budget perspective. Is that right, Dustin?
Yeah, that's right. We flush all that out over this 6-week period, and we get alignment on it. I think that's the important piece of this phase. Is it's not it's not a grand reveal. This is a partnership. So as we're working through it, we're evaluating, what did you have in the RFP? Like, what did we uncover through our on-site sessions there between weeks 3 and 5, the process review sessions where we're working with your users, and where were things more complex or less complex? So we build that together. And that is a big part of the success as you lead into implementations, is at the end of this, the presentation of the findings in week 6. It's not, Stone Ridge went away and this is what they came back with. This is ours as the clients and Stone Ridge's recommendation back to the board or the leadership team, whatever it may be, to be successul.
Yep, that's a great way to put it. So let's I'll just ask this. Maybe I'm wrong here. So Ron, and that's a fun thing about Confab, everyone. We get to be just to the point here.
Yes.
I love this. It's like you get to try a partner out before you have to commit to it. The roadmap, to a degree, is that. Am I right with that, Ron and Dustin? Like, is this because right? Like, this is like
Absolutely.
At the end, the presentation is where we're saying we feel very confident now about that cone of uncertainty, as we call it, for budget, scope, and timeline. Let's go or not go, right? This is like the end of dating.
Absolutely. I mean, a big part of our portfolio over the years has been what we call switcher clients that left a prior partner and joined Stone Ridge. And a common theme that we see in there is, in the sales process, they're told one thing, they define it one way, they get into it, and they get people that don't understand their business or their requirements or whatever it may be. So our ability, and we've got a high level of confidence in our delivery resources, right? We want to show you, we want to demonstrate to you in this roadmap phase with our delivery resources that we can help you get to where you want to go. So I think it's a big investment for any business, sometimes, millions of dollars over multiple years. So it really gives our clients the opportunity in a condensed period of time to see how we work, how we think, how we partner, what our values are, because it needs to be a partnership if you want it to be successful. So I think that's spot on, Scott.
Yeah,
it is. It's a long-term relationship in many cases. And when people think, I mean, if you think about it, you're going to make this investment, and this software should last you 15 years minimally. I mean, they can go even longer. I mean, 20 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. Now you've got software that's just continually evolving, and we can see that with all the changes that are taking place, out there from a technology standpoint. And I think that's also really critical, is really understanding that, that partnership is going to be so valuable. The software is great, but the software is really, in my opinion, only as good as the partner that you choose to sit down with, that you choose to build that and deploy it with. If they don't have the right methodology, if they don't factor in, a lot of different variables that are going to be coming up, and you're going to uncover, and really being open to listening to that, and not just trying to push, what the product can do, but listening to what the client needs. I think that's going to be, it'll pay huge dividends.
Yeah, and I guess some of the things I want to add to the audience so that they understand the framing here, there's a lot of activities in the align phase, like demos and things of that nature, that are considered non-billable events typically for partners in this space. A roadmap is a billable engagement, and there is a benefit to that. And the benefit, in my mind, Dustin, is that we're using real delivery resources to go through that. Yeah. So sales and pre-sales, like I've been pre-sales for most of my life, to be honest. I mean, we've got a lot of great experience that we can use to really align where you're going as you go through that process and understand, for example, the core needs that you have. But I will say, I've had it many times where people are like, after sales and pre-sales go through, they're like, well, you're going to be doing the implementation, right? And it's like, no, we got to get our delivery team involved. And when we have that cutover between sales and pre-sales to delivery, a lot of customers get a lot of trepidation around that, and rightfully so, because they've built trust, obviously, with these other people that are engaged with it. I think the key thing here is that roadmap starts to engage people that really would be assisting with the implementation to bring it full life cycle. Because not only as a customer are you kind of committing to you do want to move forward with it, which allows us to use those resources that are going to have more of the industry experience or the alignment with it. But just as an example, like we're still typically, like Ron, you're engaged in a roadmap. I'm engaged with roadmaps right now where we're doing demos, for example, on features that they forgot to cover at the beginning of the demonstration. Like, is that right, Dustin and Ron? Is that a correct statement as well that we tackle?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and when you think about this as well, I mean, and I can say this because I've been in this space for 30 plus years. So 20 years ago, when we were doing software deployments, we still did what we would kind of define as a roadmap. We called it a discovery, but it was actually after we've secured the contract. Okay. Your point being, this is a separate contract. We do this, we bring this out, we break it up. So what it does is, again, it's kind of like an audition to a certain degree, because the people that are going to be involved typically on the roadmap are also the ones that will often participate in the deployment. So that's important, number one. But again, it's following those steps, digging through those processes, and then being able to build that, you know, so that we can build some confidence. You're still going to be paying for it, whether or not somebody does a roadmap. If they come to you with a modern day software solution, they've got to have hours in there for that. We do as well. We just break it out as a separate project and say, here it is. When we're done, we're going to provide all these deliverables, you know, that are going to allow you to actually, if you choose, to take that same document and give it to a different company if you wanted, and say, okay, here's what our process requirements are. Here's the things that they've dug up for us, along with maybe that RFP that we got from the consulting group. Those things I think are going to help them to really better establish what that software, what software products are really going to be able to fit their business requirements as well. So it's always been there. We've always had to do that work. We've just broken it into two different projects: roadmap first, then the full-on deployment.
Wow, this is really good. I hope. I'm sorry about that. We had a little bit of a technical glitch there, as you saw me on infinite loop there for a little bit. So we're back here. I guess we're not going to have time, obviously, to go through create, deploy, and empower here, obviously. And you know, I think this would be something that we'd love to talk to anyone that wants to dive deeper into here. One of the statements that was made on here was Kevin. Yes, Scott, so true. Getting everyone on board is key for a successful implementation. It's so refreshing when everyone on the team is driving to the same goal with the same passion for success. And then we've got another one as well. You are so right about the cutover from strategy to delivery. I worked for a partner who had an amazing strategy team, but this knowledge didn't transfer well to the delivery team. And right, you nailed it. Like it's a common problem in our industry where partners don't have that. And I will say that a customer, that's why we had a lot of switchers that came over to us, quite candidly. A lot of people felt that from a partner where they were just being sold. They've got the bobblehead team on the front end that says they can do everything, and then none of that transferred over to the delivery side of it. And I'll just, like, my tenure, and this is kind of an interesting story. There's a gentleman named Tim. I don't remember his last name, but he was at the prior organization I was at with Ron. And I remember him making a statement, and I was more on the delivery side at that point, and he said, you know, he would come into a meeting for a PeopleSoft implementation, and he would sit down and he would say, forget everything that the sales team told you, we're starting all over, basically. And I remember that just sitting with me forever now and being like, why do we do that? Does not make sense to me, because we want to have something that is cohesive as we go through this process. So it's been kind of, as we've started Stone Ridge here, it's been a driving factor and influence in my mind on doing it better as part of this. So let's do this. We've got a couple more minutes left. Dustin, I just want to ask about like the create. So like we've talked a lot about the front end, and I think quite candidly, the front end to me is one of the most critical stages. Every stage is critical, but the planning portion of it, the alignment of scope, budget, and timeline is really critical here. But when we go through our create, one of the advantages that we want to share with people is the fact that we do training, we do testing, there's different way of doing it, But one of the concepts is this joint process design concept that we've kind of talked through a couple of times. Can you talk about what these JPods are and why it's so instrumental in the success of the deployment? Because just maybe give you a softball, right? It's not just application development that JPods focus on, it's the process itself, right? So how do we help with customers winning with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the joint process designs are really critical. They're iterative in nature, like I mentioned earlier. So, on a year long or year and a half long project, we could be doing anywhere between 4 to 6 of them. But our ability to get into a virtual or a classroom type setting and to take the requirements and the solution blueprint that we've defined in the roadmap and to be able to get into a configured system, to work with our clients to look at not only how does the system work, but we also talk about the process or the persona, right? Like as the business applications continue to evolve, you might be living in M365 for part of what you need to do your job and part of D365, right? So I think through this process, we're working with business process owners, subject matter experts to define those processes, to assess will the tools work out of the box or not. At times, challenging paradigms, right? Like I think one of the things we didn't get to today is we are not a customization happy partner.
Right.
And that's not our intent. Like we don't want to just come into this and you said it has to be this way. Like let's start modifying the code and give you all this technical debt. Some of it is like it's a rigorous process where we're like, help us identify like what really is the special sauce versus what if we did it slightly different. It may be you may still get a similar outcome, right? So that's part of this magic. And of course, each of the iterations that we're doing, that configuration gets hardened, that process gets hardened. We're doing multiple rounds of data migration from your legacy system into D365. So your data is getting hardened. All of that really should build confidence with our clients in that iterative approach that the solution is hardening. They can envision how they're going to operate in this world, and then ultimately that'll lead us more into our traditional conference room pilots where we're starting to take user stories and run them end to end. But that magic of designing together in that joint fashion, in an iterative fashion, is really kind of the guts of how we build the solution.
That's awesome. Love it. All right. I've got one question left for you. This is from John on chat here. This is a good one. Question for you. Have you ever told a client you are not ready for an ERP? And I'm trying to remember. Have you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me hear this. I want to hear this.
In this particular circumstance, the client just simply had these very grandiose, designs on what they wanted to do, which we could fully support, but they just simply didn't have the budget. And they also didn't have, I think, the people, the personnel that they needed. They didn't have buy-in from their employees. This was like a single decision by, the owner of the company, and he hadn't really got buy-in from the rest of his team. And it's like, and as I told him, I said, the challenge you're going to have is, again, we can put the best software product in front of your clients, in front of you or your employees, and we can show them how this is going to work. But if they're not willing to, to at least consider it, you're going to be wasting your money. So, and in that particular case, I said, I really don't believe you're in a position yet to be looking at making this type of investment. I just don't think it would be in your best interest. The last thing we want to do too is we don't want to go in and deploy a software solution and then have everybody be unhappy.
Right.
That's not going to work for us either.
Right.
So,
right.
We want this to be a win-win on both sides.
I appreciate you giving that, because I would say what we try to do is we try to educate, right? Like it's about being that advisor as we go through this process. And candidly, that makes us lose sometimes too, which really kind of, I'm just going to say it on a stream, it really kind of sucks, because we're trying to do the right thing by telling you what it's really going to be for the work. And there's another person in there saying, no, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be faster, cheaper, and you know what happens 99% of the time that we're in a very, a competitive situation like that. We see them as a customer later on in our journey. So it's been a positive thing in that degree as well. So,
and it is interesting because, Dustin touched on it, those switchers. We've got about 1,100 clients out there. Actually, over 700 of them actually started their Microsoft journey with a different partner.
Right.
To me, that says a lot about who we are and our methodology.
Yep, nailed it. All right, I've got to get going because I've got to get out a little bit earlier. So yeah, John, we appreciate you being on stream here too and asking the question. And Deb even said yes. Deb has said no to people. That's Deb, are you sure about that? I'm just kidding. All right, perfect. So everyone, thank you again for a wonderful Stone Ridge confab here. Dustin and Ron, really appreciate your experience here. Ron, appreciate you coming in last second. Dustin, you as well. Obviously, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have another one that Carly will go ahead and post. We'll make this available for everyone else to get to as well. And yeah, I guess we'll see you all on the next confab. So thank you again, Ron and Dustin, for your time.
Take care, everybody.
Talk to you later.